Welcome everyone. This is the first graduation of our Next President's Club cohort 2018-0101. This is an 8-week program that teaches debate, critical thinking skills, constructive criticism, and public speaking. The gentlemen had a wonderful time. Do you agree? So this concludes our time together. And what we have planned today, we're going to say our pledge, and then our esteemed guest speaker will give us 10 minutes of his time, a motivational speech, and then he will embark with many debates with our participants. They have some questions prepared, but they also may gather some more questions as the day goes on, the night goes on. And then after that, I have a presentation for the participants, and then that'll conclude our evening. So first, let's start with the pledge. Stand up,
behind us?
Oh, well, it's not the American pledge.
Okay, that's okay, their pledge.
It's the Next President's Club pledge. Okay, everybody stand up, gentlemen.
Do you have to speak to the mic?
No, you can speak to the mic, just speak clearly. Okay, ready?
Do I speak to the mic?
You can. Okay, ready? I am human.
Human.
I will respect other humans because I am part of the human race, but I will stand ahead the crowd.
I will not exist in automatic mode. I will think for myself. I will use critical thinking and enlightenment. I will be president of my own company, president of a bank, president of the United States. No matter what avenue I choose, I only lead from the front.
Our honored guest speaker.
Well, I want to welcome all of you to the City of Blue Island. My name is Domingo Vargas. I'm the mayor of the City of Blue Island. And I've been mayor for the last 5 years, going on to 6 years. I've been in elected office for 26 years, because I was an alderman for 20. And this is basically going into my 6th year now as mayor of the City of Blue Island. So you know, I was born and raised here in the City of Blue Island. My family on my mother's side arrived in Blue Island in 1914. They came in from Mexico. They walked, as you've been hearing about the caravan, what's coming towards the border. Well, my family on my mother's side did the same thing. Back in 1914, my grandmother was 14 years of age. She had an older sister who was 1 year older, and then 2 other siblings, 2 male siblings. So as they're walking or trekking across Mexico, crossed to the U.S. border, paid a nickel to legally cross, they got to around 500 to 600 miles into Texas, which is present-day Dallas, present-day Irving, Texas. And my great-grandmother, she died at the scene. So she never saw the American dream. She only got to, as I said, 500, 600 miles inside Texas. They buried her there, and they continued. Again, these are teenagers. These are teenagers, and they continued walking. They knew they had to get to this area, which is Blue Island, Robbins, Cal Park, south side of Chicago, because there was jobs here. There was industry here. Again, this is the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. What's happening in Mexico, so you put it in perspective, was the Mexican Revolution. A lot of turmoil, a lot of fighting amongst the same type of people. So they escaped that violence, and they continued north to better themselves, to better their families. Again, they didn't know the language, and they really didn't have that much money, if at all. But they made it here. They made it to Blue Island, and they continued working. But as I explained to other guests of the city, they didn't have a home, they didn't have an apartment, or a mobile home, or a room. They lived in boxcars. You know what boxcars are? On the railroad? As you see the railroads going by, the square vehicles that are on the tracks, and they move. Well, they lived in those over here by 123rd and Vincennes. And they lived there for quite a number of years. And then unfortunately the Great Depression hit, World War I, and right around World War II is where the family, they started changing, and they were able to save enough money amongst the whole family that they were to buy a home, first rent, and then buy a home. To the present day, we still have the home in our family on Irving Street. Back then, as a thing, things have changed. If you were a certain color or a certain religion, you could only live in certain areas of town, unfortunately. And at that time, the place to live was on Irving Street, Broadway Street, or what we call Gypsy Town, which was where the old refinery was. So they continued working. My mother continued working. She got married in the late 50s. My dad came in from Mexico City. Now, he flew in through Midway Airport, which at that time was the International Airport of Chicago. And then they had me. And I was born in 1962. I went to grammar school here in Blue Island. Went to high school on 79th and Western, which is now it's St. Rita. At that time was Cooley Preparatory Seminary South. I attended Loyola undergraduate, attended Loyola graduate, and I also studied in London law at Notre Dame. And then I came back. I was fortunate again to be the first of my family to get a higher education, get a doctorate, a Juris Doctorate in law. And to the present day, I'm still practicing law. And so I carry or wear many hats as a defense attorney and as the mayor of the city of Blue Island. A lot of responsibilities, but I like it because, again, this is my hometown, and I want my hometown to improve. I want the people to get along with each other and flourish and continue living and prospering. As I've told other people, the chair that I sit in, the position that I hold as mayor, is a temporary one. Only God knows, if you believe in God, only God knows how long I have to be here, but I think it's a mandate that as this time that I have right now is to continue to improve for everybody, say for everyone, whether you're white, black, Hispanic, yellow, whatever it may be, the betterment of society. So I welcome all of you here to Blue Island, as I call it, the island. It's a great city. We are a city, I don't know if you know this, Blue Island is older than the city of Chicago. It was founded in 1835, so we're 4 to 6 years old in the city of Chicago. The same responsibilities that Rahm Emanuel has in the city of Chicago are the same responsibilities I have as a city here in the city of Blue Island. Fire departments, police departments, building department, finance, etc. So we all have basically the same responsibilities. The populations are different, but there it is. A lot of the homes that you see here in Blue Island, again, very historic. They say if Blue Island could have been what Chicago is now, if Chicago would not have flourished, Blue Island would have been it. A lot of famous people were born and raised here and continued, and they moved on and become very famous people in this country. So I welcome all of you. You're the future leaders of this country, and I welcome you. Thank you.
Okay, so Romello, let's start with you. Do you have a question for the mayor?
Yeah.
You can speak to the mic.
What is it like being mayor?
What is it like being mayor? Again, as I said, it's very humbling, especially when you know that people from your community have voted you, have confidence in you to do the right thing for them. So every day when I wake up, it's an honor for me to come to City Hall and represent, to the best of my ability, all the people who live in this city.
Okay, Elijah?
Do you ever have free time?
That's a good question. That is a good question. Unfortunately, given all the hats that I have, from a defense attorney to a mayor, people say, and maybe people look and say, you know what, he doesn't have time. I do try to find time. Basically, I would think that my free time is when I'm here at the city, where I'm not practicing law, either at 26 in California or in federal court or outside of the state in another courtroom. So basically, the time that I spend here in the city is what I think is my free time. Even though I love working on cars, I play guitar, I play piano. So I used to ride a lot of bikes, used to be a wrestler, but that I don't have much time for anymore. So it's basically doing what I have to do for here for the city.
I believe Tayshawn has a question. So During the weeks that we've had our sessions, we've been reading different fairy tales, and that was the basis of our debates. So one of the stories that we read was the Pied Piper.
Okay.
And so that's the origin of Tayshawn's question. Go ahead, Tayshawn.
Is Peter Piper a villain or a hero?
I would think he would be a hero. Again, what do you remember about that fairy tale? Where he would be playing the flute, right?
Yes,
And then everybody would be gathering and following him, correct?
yes.
The question is making sure that, and this goes to everyone, that we should all be leaders and not followers. But in that respect, I would think you would need at least a couple people to open the way and maybe lead you as to where you're going. And that, I think, is my responsibility as mayor, to do the right thing and tell the people who are living here in the Blue Island and the surrounding areas, that I think this is in the best interest for our city, that this is the way we should go. So I would think in that respect, my position as mayor, the Pied Piper would be as a good person versus a villain or someone bad.
Excellent. Okay, Isaiah, you have one question for the mayor?
Have you ever been to a debate before being a mayor?
Yes. Many times. Almost every city council meeting is a debate. We try not to, but my main thing, again, I've learned as being a defense attorney, the best thing is to be a listener. I have failed, and I've taken full responsibility, maybe once or twice as a mayor, where you take your emotions, get the better of you. But the best thing is to be calm, listen, and say, if you don't know the answer, I'll get back to you with an answer.
Excellent. Romello, you have another question?
Were you a good wrestler?
I think so. Not because I'm here saying it to you. I would think because when I started out at a certain weight level, the coach wanted me to go down to another level to compete and try to be more dominant in that area. I think I was. Given my size, I was.
Elijah?
Did you ever read The Art of Living?
The Art of Living. No, I haven't. Should I?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
You want to tell him a little bit about the book?
I read everything.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot everything.
Well, we're going to have to both reread it.
I know Tayshawn only had one question, so Isaiah, do you have another question for the mayor?
Is Robin Hood a hero or villain?
In my opinion, based on what I've read and what I've seen in the movies, that Robin Hood is a good person. He took from the rich and gave to the poor. So I would think he would be fighting for the interests of the people who are less represented. And maybe you want to think of this way, me as a defense attorney, I would think that I would be that type of person too. That's why I decided to become a lawyer, to help the people who need the most help in their what's called their dire situations. I could have been a prosecutor, the person trying to put people in jail, but I decided to go the other way. And I've taken some criticism over the years, both from family and friends, that why am I a defense attorney? Why am I representing the bad people? But again, my answer to that is someone needs to represent people. Someone needs to defend people's rights. And if I am not defending those people's rights, who's defending your rights then? So, and it's something when something happens to an ex-person or a family member ex-person who's been critical or criticizing me for representing the bad people, when the table turns, and now you got their family members involved, now they want the best representation. Now you're the good guy, just because now they're going through the experiences of what this other family has gone through. So I consider Robin Hood to be a good person.
I got that one.
Go ahead.
Is Goldilocks a lawbreaker or an innocent little girl?
I think she's, maybe she was naive at first, but then she grew up and learned quickly as to what life really is all about.
Did anyone here think that Goldilocks was a lawbreaker? Do you want to share your opinions? Okay, Romello, what did you think about Goldilocks?
She was a bad person, a lawbreaker, because
she was trespassing in other people's houses, and she ate their food and sat in the chair and stuff. And she broke one of the bear's things, well, furniture, and
Was it a chair?
yeah.
Right.
So
Okay.
So that makes her a lawbreaker. What do you say about that, Mayor?
You know what? Until they can prove it, you're innocent until proven guilty.
Awesome. Who has another question? Go ahead, Elijah.
Did a earthquake ever appear in your life?
Yes. I was in Mexico City. I was a tremor, actually twice. I was probably 8 or 7 years old, arriving with my parents at the what we would consider the equivalent of the Greyhound bus station in Mexico City, when we felt the tremor. And I can still vaguely remember being inside the terminal when that happened. And the other one, I had to be probably like 15 or 16 years old, hanging out on a balcony in Acapulco, Mexico, and all of a sudden you feel the balcony go out and then come back. And that was an earthquake or a tremor had occurred not too far from where we were. So those were the only two tremors, not full earthquakes that I felt. So I experienced.
Did anybody else have a question related to one of the books that we read? Okay, Renella.
do you think Jack is the villain or the hero?
From Jack and the Beanstalk.
Oh, Jack and the Beanstalk. Why don't you refresh my recollection of what you remember about Jack doing? Climbing the beanstalk?
Yeah, and he stole from the giant. And later at the end, he killed the giant.
Now, was the giant, in your opinion, a good person or a bad person?
A good person because he was just minding his own business.
What did he do to the people who were below him?
He was bad because that giant killed Jack's father
Okay.
and stole all their gold.
Maybe it isn't an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. Maybe back then, when they wrote the book, that was the way things happened, to get revenge for the death of a loved one. Again, as society, hopefully as society goes on, we're not to that point that we think that way. But unfortunately, some people still think that way. But there is an evil, whether it's a country. Those are things that we have to think as a society, what's in the best interest for humanity.
Yes, Elijah.
Back in your days, if you was a mayor, what was it like in here when you was a mayor?
Before I was mayor,
Mhm.
this was a Veterans of Foreign Wars building that they used to have meetings here, parties here. So it wasn't even used for what it is now. This was changed back in I would say in the late 80s to accommodate people with disabilities to have access, because before the city council meetings were held on the second floor of City Hall, and there's a lot of stairs to go up, and a lot of people didn't have access to city council meetings. And as you know, right now we're filming city council or this event here, and a lot of that never occurred, and that just came up into play when I took office. So it's streaming live to have more people participate and see what's actually happening in government.
Anyone else have any questions? Yes, Elijah.
What do people come to see you often?
For complaints, unfortunately, sometimes because of what neighbors are doing, they're thinking that as a result of mayor, I can resolve an issue that has been going on for years between two parties that they can't get along. In a lot of those situations, legally I cannot get involved because it's a civil matter between people. So you try to work it out as best as you can and try to give them as much as, a little bit of advice as you can. So there can be complaints regarding city services, it could be just wanted to talk, get to know the mayor as to what's going on. Anyone else? Go ahead. We'll go down the line.
Was you scared to be a mayor?
Yes, it's a full responsibility. In this city, we have close to 30,000 people, between 27 and 30,000 people who I'm responsible, making sure that everything is done well for them, that they're taken care of. And I'm basically the boss of a lot of people.
What was it like to be in Blue Island?
What is it like to do when? When I was growing up or right now?
Right now.
Right now? I think it's exciting times for Blue Island. I call it like the rebirth of the city. A lot of things happening, a lot of things being reconstructed, renovated. So the renaissance of the island, I would think. It's like everything's being built again. And people are starting to move back. People are starting to get along with each other and seeing that this is the best place to raise a family.
Excellent question. Yes, Elijah.
In your days after World War One, did they have like statues?
World War I was way before my time. So the closest that would come would be, when I was growing up, was the Vietnam War. So that was in the late 60s. Because I was born in 1962. So how old am I? I'm 56. So let me give you a little feedback about that. And you'll see it here as an example. When I became mayor of the city of Blue Island, and since Veterans Days is coming up on Monday, one of my major feats here in the city as mayor was to honor, and I have a soft heart for the Vietnam vets because of what they suffered, because a lot of them were minorities, a lot of them were black, a lot of them were Hispanic, Latinos, who when they came back, the majority of the people spat at them because they went to go defend the ideals of this country in foreign wars. And what they suffered in the jungle, and to come back to a country who did not like what they saw, what they did, etc., I thought, you know what, something has to happen. So, if you're not familiar with POW, Prisoner of War Missing in Action, what this flag stands for, what you see there is a gentleman, could be white, black, Hispanic, could be any color, and he's in a kind of, like basically a prison, and on the bottom it says, "You are not forgotten." That touches me personally because as mayor I said, you know what, at every place that we fly a flag in the city of Blue Island, underneath the U.S. flag, you will find that flag as a reminder that we will never forget the veterans who did the ultimate sacrifice for our country, for the rights that we're here right now. That's why, because of them, whether they're male or female, they did it. But it was almost 2 years ago, maybe even 3, we had a 17-year-old back in the late 50s. He was 17 years old, had started at that time, was almost going to high school, that's Eisenhower, but it would have been called the Blue Island High School. And he joined the Marines. And one of his first battles was in the island of Tarawa in the South Pacific. And unfortunately for him, that was his first and last battle. And he was 17 years of age and from Blue Island. And he died that day, along with 1,200 to 1,500 other soldiers, Marines, okay, on that island. Far away from Blue Island, in an island. So it was almost like 2.5, 3 years ago that family members were notified, again, his remains were not found, that they were excavating to make redo a parking lot, and they recovered remains, human remains, and fortunate for us, fortunate for his family, the remains were, the ones on the top, was Charles Etchie, was his name, the 17-year-old from Blue Island. So the reason why I bring this up to your attention is that what we say, you'll never be forgotten, I get the call as the mayor of Blue Island, from the funeral home across the street, says, "Hey, Mayor, we got this gentleman, we found the remains, they found the remains, the family wants to know, just to inform you as to what's going on." So I said, you know what, we'll send our police cars to go escort the body back and bring him home. And that's what we did from O'Hare. In fact, we made the news. He made the news, Charles Etchen, for his story, his dedication, his sacrifice that he did at a very young age. And we brought him back home. And we gave him a full escort all the way from O'Hare to Buada. There was people lined up on the streets from 127, all Greenwood Avenue, all flags raised in honor. And then we got the big flag from Elsa Fire Department. We had the fire trucks side to side with the ladders stretched and the flag flying over it with the hearse going underneath. And everybody was in front, and that was it. So that's basically a story that you are not forgotten. We, at least here in Blue Island, did not forget one of our own. And if there's any more, we will not forget them. And that's my little touch to Veterans Day, and that's the reason why we have these flags here.
Yes or no? How many times did you travel in your life?
I've traveled a lot. And again, I spent almost a year in England, away from family, studying law out there in London. I've traveled legally for law from here to California, all across the country, from the East Coast to the West Coast, from north to south, from Texas all the way to Minnesota. And then I've traveled to Mexico, all up and down the country. So I've been around. I've been to France.
What did you do often before being mayor?
What did I do often? Well, I had more time to work on cars or play the guitar or stuff like that, being with the family. I have a 22-year-old daughter, so I would be spending more time with her as she grew up. So that's what I would be doing before I was mayor.
Can you ask that question, Elijah?
What is your favorite book to read as mayor?
Probably, let's see, anything regarding John F. Kennedy, again, the late president, where he says, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. So anything related to that. From high school, I remember The Grapes of Wrath, which was again about the depression, people suffering, the struggles they went through. So that kind of goes back to what my family, as well as other families here in Blue Island, went through during the depression, how to struggle, how to proceed. And here's the interesting thing of all of this. Almost 100 years to the date, 100 years to the date that I took office, I took the oath to be the mayor. My grandmother arrived in Blue Island. 100 years to the date, almost, in the year. So she arrived in 1914. I became mayor in 2014, 13, 14. So who was going to think that she was going to have, or she would have thought that she was going to have a grandson who was going to be the mayor of the city where she came in as a young woman, as a juvenile, and that one day her grandson was becoming the mayor of the city of Blue Island. Whatever struggles they went through as a family, it was going to be worth it. And again, my applause and honor to all those women, because again, it was the women of the family who did everything, who escaped the violence, again, as to what was happening back home.
As a kid, have you ever got bullied?
No, fortunately not. To be honest with you, maybe I grew up, I'm the only child, but I had three cousins who lived next door who were younger than me, and basically everybody on the block was related in one way or the other, and even in high school and college I never was bullied, even as a freshman, never. Did I bully people? No. But I took out, when I was a wrestler, that's when you took your revenge on certain people, so they knew. I wasn't one person that was going to be taken lightly, whether it was in boxing or wrestling. I was pretty good on stuff.
Did you ever see a volcano erupt?
No, but not erupt, but I have seen smoke coming out of one in Mexico City. There's a volcano called El Popo, and it's around 80 miles south of Mexico City, and I've seen steam or the clouds of white smoke coming out of it, and within the last let's see, probably months, more and more steam, and some lava has come off of it. So that I have seen.
Isaiah, did you have another question?
Have you ever been
in trouble in school?
Trouble in school. Let me think. Maybe in grammar school, maybe for talking too much. They're not paying attention. I would think that was it. I was never, for the dean's office or the reprimanded for stuff like that. Never got in trouble. Because I know if I did, Dad and Mom, basically Dad was the one who would take care of the discipline. But again, I was never, even as the only child, I was never physically disciplined. It was always the look and the voice was always controlled. Even so, you know this. My dad is 94 years of age. My mom is 88. So I'm still blessed to have both of them. And if you want to say who controls the city of Blue Island, my dad, because it's still the morals, the ethics comes from him, where he can raise his voice or just slam his hand on a table, and he's broken tables with a hand. He was a big man, 6'1", 6'2", 180, 200 pounds, Hispanic man out of a family of 8. All I remember, just that voice, that growl was enough to scare the you-know-what out of everybody, even to this day. Even to this day. So he's like the godfather of the family. And everybody respects him. And as a son, I respect him. And I'm basically his second family because he helped raise his siblings, because his father died when he was 8. And we're really his second family. So I didn't want to give him any problems growing up. To let him enjoy his years as a father, etc. He's been retired since 1980. So he used to work for the railroad, and he told me this. He says, I didn't have a formal education. So I'm giving you that chance to educate yourself, to better yourself. So you decide what you want to do. You want to be a laborer like me? Or do you want to do something even more? So that's what I did. I took advantage of it. Was I, as they considered, since I was the only child, was I a spoiled brat? No. I didn't get to drive until I was 22 years of age. Even though there was always 12 cars. Again, the things about cars have been in the family. I had chores. He said, my dad would always say, you know what, there's chores to be done. You decide what needs to be done and do it every day during the summer. I would have to do it. And then I would play the guitar or the piano. And every time we come home, I want to hear a new song. Play it. So that's the routine growing up, the routine. And he never served in the military, but it almost like the Marine Corps mentality. It was there, structured even to this day. Anyone else?
What was it like growing up?
I think, let's put it this way, a slower pace. We didn't have computers. We didn't have cell phones. People were talking more to one another, face to face. It was a calmer time, quieter time, less violent time. Maybe the violence was there, and maybe because as a result of not having social media, we weren't aware of it. But I think it was a better time.
Do you know the song Follow the Drinking Board?
Do you know the lyrics?
I used to know it.
I think that it's a long time. I can't remember. When should I know it?
If you know all about slavery, then yeah.
Oh. All right, great question. Does anyone else have any last questions? Okay, awesome.
Did people come here to rather see you or give you something offering?
No. We can't. As mayor, I can't accept this. I won't accept it.
So can you explain what the city council does and this chambers? I think that's what he's asking.
All right,
what happens in this?
Okay, where you're sitting at are the seats of our aldermen, or the people who represent certain areas in the city of Blue Island. So if you think about a map, it splits up into basically 7 parts. And out of those 7 parts, you got 2 people, 2 aldermen per ward, who represent a certain section of the city. So you divide it up in 7 parts. So they sit here, and every Tuesday, the second and fourth Tuesday of the month, they come here and we discuss and we pass and we vote on certain issues that affect the city of Blue Island. So, majority of times everything goes smooth, but there's sometimes, got little bumps and we have to deal with it. The main thing is that we all have to get along to try to pass things for the betterment of the community. And that's where myself, the city clerk, the city attorney, and the treasurer are the leaders of the Pied Pipers who have to tell the people this is what we need to be done, and this is in the best interest of the city.
Are you the only one here?
Right now I am. But when we have a regular city council, you got all these chairs will be filled, and all that will be full also.
Next Thursday?
No, Tuesdays, and every Tuesday. The second and the fourth Tuesday. So next Tuesday at 7 o'clock is when we have the meetings.
We'll go every Thursday. We have our next President's Club.
Good. Okay.
This is the last day.
Okay, any last questions? Okay, great job, gentlemen.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Okay, so now, I would like, so they don't know what they're getting for graduation.
Okay.
So first, this is the book that they were talking about. This is The Art of Living. It is, I just let you take it.
Thank you.
This is it's a book on Stoic philosophy. And basically what it says is, you are in control of your life, not other people.
Correct.
Thank you. So we read passages from it, but now you have your very own copy, gentlemen. So make sure you read it, digest it, and make it your second Bible.
Right. And so I was a philosophy major in college. And I was a political science major in college. And so I had a double major, and I had a minor in what's called classical studies.
Did anybody throw food at you? Like you little kid?
Good in school.
Okay, and then the second gift that you're getting, now that you guys are presidents, you need your own business card. So this is called a business card holder, and what it says is they're members.
Very good. Congratulations.
Now they're members, and on the back is the pledge, what we said when we first started, so they'll always have it with them. And you can pass it out to your friends, share your wisdom. There you go. Congratulations. 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 And congratulations. And then,
Are we supposed to be clapping?
no. And then the last gift, this is for perfect attendance. So I'm happy to announce that everyone came to every class. One had an excused absence, so you get one too. And these are called challenge coins. This is a military tradition. We have to slightly change it for the age group, but for the military, it's a challenge coin. So military members have their challenge coins, and if you saw somebody, if you saw your friend, you tap it on the table. And if they don't have their coin, they owe you a drink.
Oh, wow.
But since you guys are kids and you don't be able to drink, you can make up your own rules. But you get your very own coin.
Where do we put it at?
You put it in your pocket, put it in your backpack, don't lose it. There you go.
Put it.
There you go. And then we have one for the mayor.
Oh, thank you.
What's it going for?
Thank you much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so
My
much.
pleasure. Thank you for again.
What is it going
Yeah.
for?
Excellent.
Keep up the good work, guys.
Thank you.
What's it going for?
Give them a hand, everybody.
Thank you.
And that concludes.
Thank you very much. Congratulations to all of you.
Thank you.
And to the parents.